We are going to get started now on the attitude, and there's really two key concepts that we're going to talk about when we get into the attitude. And the two concepts are the idea of autonomy and the idea of counterintuitive thinking. And, you know, if you want to think of like a cheat code or like a shortcut, this really is it, right? Like if you can naturally get yourself to become autonomous, you don't really need to learn everything else, because a lot of the other stuff will become natural. Counterintuitive thinking is sort of the cheat code that like, while you're striving, we say like you want to strive to be autonomous. We all do, but we're all human, and it's not always easy to be, and we'll define autonomous, but you know, free of the good opinion of other people and whatnot. Counterintuitive is the cheat code. It's what allows you to, while you're working towards that ideal state of autonomy, it allows you to still get results because you're able to change the way you think, which then changes your behavior.
Yeah, like I said, to define the autonomous man, you know, we have this quote: the self-governing and independent of the good. And good is the most important word on that screen, opinion of others. And the reason that we emphasize that word is because a lot of guys think they're autonomous. A lot of guys are like, I don't care what people think about me. I'll do whatever I want. But the fact is, the decisions you make in your day-to-day life often betray the fact that you're not as autonomous as you think. And when I was discussing with Bobby yesterday, I thought back to this story. This goes back to my New York days when I was doing a lot of cold approach and trying to meet women, you know, in different situations. And I remember there was this one day, and this is when it really clicked for me. And ideally, you know, we want you guys to have an experience like this, but I'll just share mine, just to kind of move you in the right direction of what we mean. I was on the 6 train. It was crowded. It was like probably like, you know, rush hour or whatever. And I saw a girl who I thought was really attractive. And I was like, oh, man. Like, my first instinct was like, oh, wow, holy shit, like, I want to meet that girl. But then, all of a sudden, that live my life by committee voices in my head. Oh, maybe you know someone on the train. What if she rejects you? You might embarrass herself. Oh, what if people know that you like girls? You know, all these, like, stupid, irrational thoughts are going through my head. And it stopped me from doing it. And I was like, all right, I'm just whatever. I'll just, you know, not look at her or whatever. But then that little voice in my head was like, no, if you're really autonomous, if you're really living your life for yourself and not these other people, no matter what her reaction is, it doesn't matter. I just need to do this for myself because I want to do it, because I'm attracted to this woman. There's nothing wrong with me going up and, you know, approaching her. So if I'm truly autonomous, I have to do this. So I, you know, walking, kind of getting, you know, pushing through people in the subway car. Finally, she had her earbuds in, so I had to get her to take the earbuds out and use a horrible line, right? I'm like, oh, you're adorable and I had to meet you. And it was like showtime at the fucking Apollo. Like the whole subway car erupted in laughter. There was like this big fat black woman. She was like, good luck with that line, honey. And I'm just like, but you know, and it was weird though. As bad as it sounds now, as I'm telling you the story, I'm like, man, how did I not like react to that? But at the time, I mean, it just clicked. It just solidified that I'm living my life for myself. And it was almost like all this shit that people were talking, it just kind of like rolled off my back. And I just kept talking to this girl. Like I said, I ended up getting that girl's number and, you know, dating that girl. And it ended up, you know, a very, very happy ending for me. But I always think back to that moment. And I always think back to me in that subway car where I was debating, should I approach her or should I just, you know, like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat too much. I don't, you know, what are people going to think about me? Like I said, literally I remember a thought, I kept thinking, what if somebody I know from high school is on this train? What if someone recognizes me? You know, and then but then I started thinking, what are they really going to find out? That like, I like girls? Like what the fuck? So that's, and you know, and that's just like one microcosm of the autonomous man. You know, it's kind of an, you know, a very applicable situation to a seminar like this, but I realized that every like decision I was making in my day-to-day life, like, you know, going out and starting my own company, that was an autonomous decision. Like, you know, a lot of my friends are like, oh, it's a recession, don't, you know, you should really just play it safe. But if you're really living your life based on your own values, based on autonomy, based on whatever the fuck you want to do, then you have to have that moment, like me in the subway car, where it just clicks. And it's not about just, oh, you know, the lip service of I don't care what people think about me or doing wild stuff to just prove either to your friends or to yourself you don't care. It's about having the courage, having the fucking balls. Like, I have this cousin, I'm Italian, so I have a cousin Vito, right? Cousin Vito works in construction. And I always hear his voice in the back of my head. He's like, Rob, whenever he's trying to get me to do something, usually bad life decisions, like gambling or whatever. He's like, you don't have the balls. And I always think, like, get the fucking balls to do what you want to do, So ultimately, when as we're going to talk about the autonomous man, this is sort of something to strive for. This isn't something that happens overnight, and that's why it's cool that we're also going to talk about sort of the counterintuitive, the hacks to being autonomous.
I think the example Rob gave of fear of rejection, I mean, that's like the highest level, right? To get to that level of and we all kind of know, like, intuitively we know, rejection doesn't really matter. I don't know them. I'm never going to see them again. But emotionally, it still affects you. But I think that, being independent of a good opinion of others is more even insidious than that, because good opinion, if you wound up in a friend zone, and like we said, everybody pretty much had their hand up at some point that they wound in the friend zone, it was because of not really fear of rejection most of the time. It usually stems from the fear that you're with this girl, you're talking, she seems to like you, and in your mind you're like I don't want her to think I'm like every other guy and make a move, or I don't want to I don't want her to think I just want to fuck her, so I'm gonna not be that, because sometimes one of the worst things that can happen is you get rapport with a girl very fast, and then you don't want to break it, right? And it could be a person, it could be anything where if somebody kind of thinks like, oh, he's a good guy, or we live our whole life trying to stay in that thing. Like, we hate, it's just a natural human tendency. It's a commitment and consistency type of thing, where if somebody sees us one way, we don't want to change it. So if somebody has a good opinion of us, like they think we're, a reliable guy, we want to keep that opinion. Or if they think we're funny, we want to be funny. We don't want to ever be in a bad mood around them. And a lot of times, that's why you mess up with girls, is really because of this underlying fear of changing that opinion of you. That's why I always say to guys, you're not really that nice. Like, it's like a lot of guys say, well, I'm a nice guy. And when I'm coaching a guy, they'll say, but Bobby, I'm just a nice guy. And I'm like, are you really though? Like, you're not really nice. You do want to fuck. You just told me, I asked you if you want to fuck her, and you said, yeah, I want to kick her in the room and fuck the shit out of her. Like, so how are you, because you didn't go for it, you're nice? I mean, is it if you're with a guy, is it nice that he didn't fuck you? Like you're on a date?
That was like, yeah.
Are you really being nice that you didn't go for the kid? Like, she got dressed up for you. She's like, yeah, she wants to,
fucking rude.
She put on her best. She shaved her legs because she thought and at the end of the night, you were like, I'm gonna be nice and not go for it. You weren't. Who were you really being nice to?
Yeah, you didn't have the balls.
You didn't have the balls, and you were like, you convinced yourself that I don't want to be seen as the bad guy. It's not really nice not to want to be seen as the bad guy if your true real feelings are to be the guy that goes for it. You're not really being true to yourself. So in a lot of ways, being autonomous is really about emotional honesty with yourself, right? Are you making excuses for not going for what you want? Are you talking yourself out of it? Or are you going for it? Now, you don't need to, I don't want you to walk out of here going, I need to be able to walk up to a girl in the subway and approach her. That's not what we're saying. I've never approached a girl in the subway in my life, and I have probably never will. I just don't, it's not in me. I don't want to do it, so it's not part of it. But, your thing might not be that. But if your thing is, I want to do something and I'm not doing it because of that reason, then it's a matter of not living to your true self, to your autonomous nature.
In fact, that's actually a great point. And I think that I want to draw attention to it, because sometimes even doing something that you think is scary, but you're doing it for another person's benefit. Oh, I heard this. Rob told me a story at the subway, so now I need to go approach a girl on the subway. You're not autonomous. You're not living for yourself. Like Bobby said, autonomy is all about knowing what your values are, what you want to do, and then going out into the world and not being afraid to do it.
Yeah. So, what does it mean to be autonomous?
Or I think what this applies to is that why is this attractive? Why does this work? How does it apply to the scrambler? And the reason that autonomy works so well in regards to the scrambler, and when you have that, that one hard to get girl, and you're trying to figure out what your game plan is that it's really the opposite of neediness. You can't be autonomous. You can't have all these other things in your life going on and still also be like checking your phone every 2 seconds. one of the things that me and Bobby are talking about is a lot of times when we meet single parents, or we hear about story about single parents, like single dads that are really committed to their children, or like sometimes we meet these clients, or even I've met girls that are single moms, and a lot of times single parents are very autonomous because they're living for this other human being, and a lot of times because of that, they're a lot more attractive. And a lot of guys are like, oh, like I met the single parent, and like just running the scramble on me. But in actuality, a lot of it is coming from the fact that this woman is so autonomous because she has so much in her life going on other than this guy that like she's giving him some of her attention, but not all of it.
Yeah, single moms are great because they don't have a lot of time. So like the night they do get out, they want to have sex. And it's very easy a lot of times to sleep with them. And it fucks with your head because you have this great night. It's like their night out. You have this great date. And then it's like you can't get them out to hang out again. And now you're like, what the fuck? She seems so into me. But the reality was she has something else. She's got these responsibilities. She has somebody in her life that is more important than you. And a lot of being autonomous, and we'll kind of talk about this, is to have things in your life that are more important than any woman that you meet. If you meet a woman and she senses that she's the most important thing in your life immediately, it's a big turnoff.
Yeah, write that down. That's good. That's like quotable.
And they can tell. They can tell how quickly and they've got all your attention. And the harder it is to get your attention, the more of a challenge you are. And in a lot of ways, the reason why it's so easy for guys who have a lot of options to do this is because they have a lot of options, right? And we'll talk about it in a second. But having options with other females is only part of it, right? You can be autonomous because you're juggling 5 or 6 girls. You can be autonomous because you
starting a business.
Yeah. You can be autonomous because you're really into running marathons. Like there's like a million different ways you can be autonomous, and you kind of have to mentally realize that like this is what I want. I've seen so many guys who, I have a friend who he was in a cover band. He loved it. And he met the girl that he wound up dating. She came to one of the bars. He winds up dating her, but then then she starts like talking. I hate that you're always out at these bars. He gives up going to these bars, and then she gets bored with him and leaves him because she liked that he had this passion in his life, this like other thing going on that she had to compete. She hated she liked it, but she hated it. She hated it that Friday nights he was going to be at this bar, but it made it more rewarding for her when she got to spend some time with him Saturday. So you want to always keep that in mind. I'm curious because we throw the word neediness around a lot. Anybody have an idea of what neediness means to them?
You need the other person to validate you so that you can feel like you're a valuable person.
You need the other person to validate you so you feel like a valuable person. That's exactly that's perfect. And that's the thing is that the idea of neediness, which we all know is unattractive. It's that we're constantly, when this person is the most important thing, you're constantly looking for them to, validate what I'm doing, validate my attention, validate my existence. Whereas, like Bobby said, if you have, say, like something as like running marathons or creating a business or raising a child, you're getting so much validation from that interest, from that passion, from that thing that you really want to do that, you met this girl and that's cool and you're going to give her some of your attention, but no girl wants to walk into your life and immediately be the most important thing in your life. She wants to work for it. She wants to compete with the other things. She doesn't want you to give up, your dream to be the cover band rock star. She wants to fight for that. And yeah, she's going to bitch about it. She's going to give you some friction. But if you capitulate to that friction, you're fucked.
Yeah. So neediness really, Pat was saying, it's a need for validation. And what happens, and we're going to talk about, in the phases is actually you should be validating women, and validation, as we're going to go over, is not flattery, so it's not complimenting women. It's validation is a lot more. It's a lot more fine-tuned than compliments. But we go into it needing validation. So neediness is not just like the stereotypical examples of texting too much or like confessing your feelings. It's also just needing reassurance. It's like it's being out on a date and going, is this place okay? Like, do you like this place? Like, oh, like, you asking a girl out for sushi, right? And is sushi okay? Like, do you like? If the girl doesn't care where she's going, right? She just, if you have to like double check everything that it's okay, that's neediness, right? Like, she wants you to just go, we're going out for sushi. If she doesn't like sushi, she'll get.
Yeah, she'll let you know, but you don't have to ask her.
Most of the time, they won't even care. They'll order the rice or the miso soup and the glazed salmon. Like, they'll find something to eat. You don't have to worry about that. You're worrying so much about what she's going to think or what mistake you might make. It's needing the validation. I mean, of not going out with your friends because she might call that night and she might at the last minute be available and saying, and you lie to yourself and say, I'm tired, but meanwhile you're staring at your phone waiting for her to show up. It's going to a party that she's at and not even be able to enjoy yourself until you've gone over there and like established that there's like a good vibe, like, and needing that like constant reassurance with a woman that things are going good, right? And that's really the beginning of the end, is the minute that you need that reassurance that things are going good. She knows she has you, and as we're going to talk about, once a girl knows she has you, it's over. Like, it's the beginning of the end. Like, at that point, it's not going to go. She may get drunk and hook up with you. She may pity kiss you. But you're never going to have her the way that you want to have her. You're never going to have her. Like, she's always going to
be settling.
Yeah, she's going to be settling.
If it happens at all, which is unlikely. Yeah.
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 So just to hammer this point home, obviously another idea is a willingness to walk away. As you see from the slide, like, nothing murders attraction faster than when a woman realizes that you'll put up with bullshit, that you don't have boundaries, that she can walk all over you, she can flake on you, she could cancel plans, she can speak to you a certain way, she could have her cell phone out texting, out on a date, which I think is the fucking rudest thing imaginable. Guys or girls, I have friends that do that, and it drives me nuts. And, when you see that behavior, and this goes back to the idea of autonomy and understanding what your values are, what your boundaries are, what your expectations out of the other person, might be, and those expectations, those boundaries, they can't change just because she looks great in a little black cocktail dress. And that's what I've noticed a lot of guys, and I catch myself doing sometimes too. If a girl's really attractive, or I think, wow, this girl's amazing, suddenly I start selling myself out or selling out my values. And you have to really be cognizant of that and not allow yourself to put up with behavior that is going to eventually, down the line, be insidious. Like Bobby said, either it's probably going to lead to her just losing respect for you and just ignoring you. But even if you do end up with her, you're going to end up getting dragged around by your ear at the lake, and Bobby Rear's going to tell me this story.
And you also run, when a woman settles for you, and it happens, when a woman hits a certain age, she's more prone to settling. But the problem is that when a woman settles, it takes one charismatic Facebook message from, her fucking her boyfriend from the 8th grade hits her up, and next thing, this literally happened to my dad's friend. He's a 50-year-old guy, married for 20 years, and his wife moves, I live in New Jersey, and his wife moves out to California to be with some guy she dated in 8th grade who just fucking came on Facebook and just stole his whole life away, and it happens if you're not, if you're not understanding of what you need to do to continually, some people say, when does it end? It really never ends. Like, you always have to be, you don't have to consciously be, running the scrambler on her like 3 years into a relationship. But you consciously, the thing is that when you're autonomous, you don't have to consciously be doing it, right? Like, I'm out here hosting this seminar, right? My girl's at home. She's in the house. But you know what? She's probably a little fucked up in the head right now because she knows Rob. She knows his, so she's probably wondering what the fuck's going on out there.
Great. I'm like wrecking your relationship. Awesome. Yeah.
And it's just, but some guys won't, I have friends who wouldn't go on a trip like that because it might rock the boat, and the wife might get pissed off, or the girlfriend might get pissed off, and I don't want to be gone because she might find somebody else. But meanwhile, I know that in as much as she might be at home a little mad, my value at this moment, this time being gone, is actually increasing. The boredom she felt watching Netflix with me for a few days has now evaporated into her wondering if I'm in Scottsdale and we're tag teaming chicks and shit. I don't know what's going through her mind, but I can tell you that it's not complacency right now. I know that, and that part of being autonomous is because of that. Women never get complacent, whereas I don't actively go, I got to go on a trip to keep the spark in a relationship, but I'm going on a trip because it's my purpose, it's my, it's what I want to do.
And you use a key word there, and this is going to be, you're going to say this better down the line when we get into some of the later sections, but use the word value, putting the value on someone's time, putting the value on someone's validation. And that's a problem when you're in a situation where you're losing a girl and she's slipping away. It's because in terms of the way she sees, your time, your attention, your opinions, your validation, it's going down in value. So like Bobby said, maybe like sitting around watching Netflix, not giving, being the even keel guy, if Bobby's value might have been taking a little bit of a dip, now it's going back up because now it's scarcity. Now his time, his attention, it's going up in value. So when he comes back, even if, she's not necessarily feeling the greatest emotions, the sum total of it, the means justify the ends, because there's going to be a happy ending to that. She's going to come back. She's going to feel better about the relationship. She's going to feel better about Bobby, and things are just going to go better. Everything's going to be better. So the idea that value, and by making your time, your attention, and your validations valuable, that's a key point, and we're gonna build on that in a later section.
Yeah, and you can consciously do things too, so I'll turn my phone off, so when she calls, it goes right to voice, because I know it'll piss her off, and it's like, she's like, fucking, why is this phone? Oh, my phone died, sorry. And then there's that, does this phone really die, or does she, it could be fun. You can do things that will push certain buttons. But so the willingness to walk away, getting back to that, because this is really crucial too, and I kind of mentioned one of the first girls that I actively used this on, and I did walk away after that fight, and I walked away for my own dignity. But by walking away, you can't lose by walking away. A lot of guys are afraid that if they walk away, that they're going to lose. And I hear guys, I say, just walk away. But she might find, I go, if there's something there, the walking away is the only thing that you can do, right? Because that's the only way you can salvage it sometimes. If it's meant to be, I promise you that walking away, if the situation dictates it, will more than likely lead to it happening. Sticking around, especially if you're in emotional quicksand, and who here has been in emotional quicksand? You guys know the phrase?
Let's just define it. Yeah. For people who don't know what emotional quicksand is. Emotional
quicksand is when you just your emotions have totally taken over. Your mind is just friggin' warped. It's scrambled, and you're like trying to dig yourself out of the hole. And everything you're doing is just making it worse and worse.
You're just going deeper and deeper.
You're just going deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And at that point, there's nothing you can. If you're in emotional quicksand, there's nothing you can do. You're not going to do anything right. At that point, you have to walk away for a little bit. You have to regroup. When we get to the actual phases of the scrambler, there's something called the blackout. Sometimes that's enough to snap you out of it. Sometimes when you're in the parking lot, bloody mess at the end of the night, you have to just walk away for a really long time. And
well, it's so funny. That's a great point. And what's really funny too is that it was kind of frustrating when we first started teaching this, and we first started teaching the scrambler. That blackout phase, that was built into the scrambler. All right, you got to do the blackout phase. And the blackout phase is essentially, it's a fancy sounding, military term, but what it really just was you just stop texting her back. You just give her a little breathing room. You spend 7 days, 14 days just not responding, not reaching out to her or responding as little as possible to her. And early on, that was one of the things every guy, when we talked to them, dude, the blackout phase, genius. And we're like, we just told you to do nothing. Wasn't some stroke of genius, It's and it was almost kind of we have all these other psychological things, and it was telling people to do nothing was what everyone remembered. But it's because of the fact of everything that Bobby was just saying. It's because when you black out, when you just kind of give her a little bit of space, you walk away, and all of a sudden now, your value's going back up. She starts looking at your time as having value again.
Yeah, and a lot of it, we kind of mentioned, right? A lot of it is really defining, and you may want to may want to do this at some point in your workbook, is really defining unacceptable behavior for you. And it's not a matter of being like a dictator where it's like, you pulled out your phone and texted somebody while I was there. It's over.
With me, I'm the dictator. Yeah, with me, yeah. If I'm talking to you, you guys pull your phone out.
I hate it. No, I hate it. But you don't. But if it's repetitive behavior, and it's annoying you, and you're sitting there, and she's pulling her phone out, texting her friends, looking at her phone, and inside you're going, this is like I can't even like. And you don't tell her, like, that's the inability to walk away because you're afraid if I tell her I might mess it up. You have to act out and you have to tell her. If she's always late, she's always late, and we're both with Spanish women, and they're always late, so you kind of accept it in some situations. But if it's really bothering you, you have to speak up. There's certain things, if she's boring, right? Like, how many guys? It amazes me when a girl's like boring and they're willing to just deal with the fact that she's boring, and it's like they're going out with her and they're like, how can I? Asking us like, how can I make this more entertaining? Like, maybe she just sucks, maybe she's just fucking boring, and you're like making it your responsibility. And Jessica might talk about this too when we talk about the idea of walking away. Is like, I mean, I do coaching calls with guys where, they're telling me the girl they want to use a scrambler on, and I'm like, she's fucked up. I'm like, why do you? She's not a nice person. Like, what do you, And it's like you have to preemptively know what you're willing to take, because once you're in emotional quicksand, you'll take anything. Like, a girl will do just about anything to you, and you'll still, you'll still be okay with it, and you have to kind of know, and you have to be aware that saying no can't hurt. I mean, I had a girl that she was like flaking on me, and things were going kind of bad, and then she, like, we had fooled around, and she ignored my text, and like 3 a.m. I get a text from her. If you tell anybody that we made out, I'm never talking to you again. And I'm like, and I said, fuck off, right? I'm like, and I was like, it's like the most insulting text I ever got. And trust me, like, this was a girl that when that text went off at 3 a.m, I was so happy because I was like, oh, I'd been waiting for that text, and then I read that and I wrote fuck off, and like,
Jesus.
Yeah,
brutal.
But here's the thing, I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks, and then I get a text, I'm in Miami, you should be here with me, I miss you. Like, and you have to trust. It's a matter of like trusting sometimes that, like, if you walk away and it's meant to be, they will reach out. But if you take shit, it's not going to be meant to be. So, kind of, an exercise in learning this and discussing this. First off, is getting comfortable saying no. Being willing to say no to things you don't want to do. Anybody here ever work in a restaurant? Amazing place to meet girls, all right? But
Scottsdale, very nice, yeah.
It's a great environment socially, but one of the things you may, in most restaurants, there's like, oh, can you cover my shift, right? Did you guys have that? Like, where it's like, oh, can you work for me? And there was this guy, Frank, and he was like the typical nice guy. And like, girls just would come to him and be like, New Year's Eve, Frank, can you work for me? And he would not want to say no. So he would work for them thinking that he was getting points, Girl would walk up to me, can you work for me? Are you fucking crazy? I'm not working, And I would be the one who, she would hang out with and go home with, because saying no is not a bad thing. Like, we have this fear of saying no, thinking it's going to, hurt our chances with a girl. If she says, can you hang out tonight? And you are going to go watch, the fight with your friends, and you're afraid if I say no, it's going to hurt my chances. Saying no will never hurt your chances. So you want to consciously get in the habit of saying no. Especially saying no to girls, but just saying no to anything you don't want to do. Just be very, very comfortable saying no to people.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And that even goes back to autonomy and the idea that, when you say no or you walk away, but then you have something else to validate you. Because a lot of times the reason that guys can't walk away or they can't remove themselves from the situation is because, like we said before, of the idea of validation, and they're getting those, at least they're feeling the positive emotions, the validation from being, getting the girl's attention, affection, whatever. So they just want more of it, and they're so afraid to cut themselves off from that drug. So, this is how, relating back to autonomy, that's why when you have other stuff going on and you have a clear vision of what your values are, it's a lot easier to do this versus the guy who's just out there like, oh, you know, I don't know, like, she told me not to tell me when I made out with her. Like, maybe she's keep the secret. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, I told everybody.
Yeah, I've got a megaphone after that. Yeah.
You know, one other thing on that.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just go back there because. So saying no, getting back to that idea of saying no and understanding that it can help you. One of the things that to practice is as well. This is not necessarily something that will, you know, it's not like a relate to the girl you might, and it could, right? It could if it's a girl you see often, a girl you work with. You really want to practice the willingness to actually walk away in a conversation. This is one of the first things years ago when I was like really just kind of getting started studying dating advice, and back then it wasn't dating. Back then it was just wanting to like talk to girls and in bars and parties. Was this idea, and it was actually one of those powerful. It's like one of those things that it's so simple, but it works so good. Is, you know, I used to host a lot of house parties and stuff in college. And like the move, me and my friends used to jet. It was called the walk away because we just go up to a girl, have a really good conversation with her, and I'll talk to you later, and just leave. And then you just know when that happens, like you can go back to her at any time later, and you left on a high note. Whereas most guys, and I was guilty of this, is I hung out. I just was so I'd have to take a piss, and I'd be like holding the piss in, like afraid to like, you know, like it was, you know. So just getting in that habit of being able to have a good conversation and say, I'll see you later, and just trust, like, you know what, maybe I will see you later, maybe I won't, but I'm not going to hang on here. I'm not going to overstay my welcome. I'm not going to, like,
Actually, but you know, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it reminds me, I'm going to give you guys, like, one of my favorite texts for getting a date with girls. And I've been using this text, you know, on Tinder, on dates, whatever. And this is my all-time, and it goes back to this principle. That's why I was like, oh, I gotta tell them the text. But the text is that when you're texting with a girl and you're interacting with her, so you're talking to her on Tinder, and all of a sudden you hit one of those topics that you know she's interested in. Sometimes something comes up, maybe you traveled somewhere, maybe it's your occupation, whatever it is. You know, you guys all know that moment where she's now like, oh, like she's asking you questions, oh, that's really cool. And what a lot of guys do in that situation, you know, the intuitive idea is, oh, she's interested, let me just keep talking about this. Oh, man, she's interested. But what I do is, I don't say necessarily no, but what my favorite text to write back is, oh, yeah, I'd love to tell you more about that. A topic better discussed over a glass of wine. A topic better discussed over a beer or 10. You know, something to that effect. And what I'm doing is I have that trust that she's gonna want more. That I don't need to necessarily, you know, get all the validation right then and there over text. I want that to translate into a date. So the next time that you're at that high point with the girl, you're texting with the girl, you're interacting with her, even like in a conversation, and she brings something up at a party, or say, you know, I remember one time I met a girl at work, and we were talking about something, and I knew that in that situation, I couldn't I couldn't make a move on her or that kind of thing. You know, I'm not going to make a move on a girl over text. So what I do is I just put a pin in it and say, oh, that's a topic better discussed, you know, with XYZ thing, over a cup of coffee, over a margarita, when I cook you dinner, whatever you want to do with her. But by just taking that little template and using it, you're really applying the strategy, and it is so powerful. It is such a good way. I mean, it just makes, you know, transitioning from like talking to a girl into a date so fucking easy.
Yeah, it's a great point. You know, using that, a lot of guys don't know how to go from a conversation to a date or a texting to a date, but you take the high note and you turn that into a date.
Which actually leads perfectly to the next slide, which is the capture. Yeah. Sorry, I'm like...
Sorry. I just want to say one other thing, right? Because on the flip side, when a woman senses she can lose you, you become more attractive to her. That is like, you want to really underline that or write that down. There's got to be some level of fear that she can mess things up with you. She's got to be kind of worried that, like, you know, that you will walk away, that she can lose you. I have this friend, Bill, and he knows him, a natural guy, and we were living together after college for a few years, and he had this girlfriend that, like, she came on a Thursday, or he was kind of, not really his girl he was kind of like sleeping with and hanging out with. And it's like Monday morning, and she's still not leaving, right? And so he calls her upside, and he's like, you know, aren't you going to go? And she breaks down. She goes, I'm afraid if I leave, I'll never see you again. Because he was so natural at this, and I felt so, she was such a nice girl, but she was like so scared that if she left his house, she wouldn't leave because she was afraid. He was like so like in his own, like he had so much shit going on in his life. She was, you know, and you know, and part of it is just that, you know, it doesn't have to be that extreme. I mean, but there's got to be some level of fear that she can mess up, she can lose you.
Yeah, and just a side note, hopefully a lot more Bill stories. I love Bill. You know, Bobby introduced you to Bill. Bill is a real character, and he's really good with women. He does a lot of stuff naturally. So, and it's funny because he doesn't really. I don't think Bill would ever go through a course like this because of the fact that it just would it would just be too. It would fuck with his head.
He asks me for advice sometimes, and it actually he winds up doing worse when he tries to use my advice because he does his own shit, and then he comes to me. He's like, "Yo, I need to sit down with you." I'm like, "Listen, man, just." Half the techniques that I teach are reverse engineering shit you were doing when we were hanging out. So don't try to do shit that you were already doing naturally and thinking about it, and then you're going to be in your own head. It's going to be weird. Just keep doing what you were doing.
But what's so funny about that, because there are some minor holes and stuff, it leads to a lot of funny stories and puts Bill in a lot of interesting situations. So I hope Bobby tells some more, because I for myself, Bill stories are the best. Every time he tells me a Bill story, it's always a real knee slapper.
So we got controlling your attention. So, you know, here's one of the things I want to get at, right? And I want to get this right off the bat. And we kind of mentioned, you know, the desire to sleep with her, wanting to have sex with her, right? And most guys, they want to have sex with the girl, but that, you know, a lot of things say she can't know she has you, right? She can't know that you like her too much too soon. And the thing you have to understand is she can know you want to fuck her. It's perfectly okay for her to know you're sexually attracted to her. But most guys do the complete opposite. Most guys meet a girl, and they're willing to give her their affection. They're willing to let her know that they want to be her boyfriend, but they don't want her to know that they want to, you know, fuck her. That they're ashamed of it. They hide it, and you know that's you know we say You want to be okay. It's not about when we say hiding. It's not about being you know, playing so indirect that you don't show sexual desire. It's being a challenge to her, and a lot of being a challenge means your attention. You have to begin looking at your attention as your number one asset. And what I mean, the girls know they can fuck you, right? It's not, you're not hiding it. Jessica knows that, you know, we fuck her, you know, we're guys, sorry. It's not going to take, but she doesn't know if we would talk to her again after we fucked her. She doesn't know if we would date her. She doesn't know if we would, she knows that, you know, she puts a little effort in, we're gonna, you know, but she doesn't know, beyond that, she doesn't know. She doesn't know, was he just looking for a good time? Does he want to turn this into a relationship? Any of that she doesn't know, right? So that's where your advantage is. It's not hiding the fact that you're sexually attracted to her, because the reality is, most girls kind of know, you know, I could probably, if I put a little effort in, this guy would sleep with me. What they don't know is what would it mean to him, right? So that's where your advantage is. It's not hiding that you want to sleep with them. It's not letting them know what your objective is after that. And part of it comes naturally, right? If you're autonomous and you have options, you don't know what you want, right? You may sleep with a girl and have thought that it was going to be a one-night stand. Then you wake up and you're hanging out with her and you're just enjoying being around her, and you hang out with her again. But you don't really know, right? And a lot of times, it's the process of finding it out. But we intuitively, and we're going to get to counterintuitive, intuitively we feel in order for her to accept that we want to have sex with her, she has to first know that we want something more than sex. And we give too much attention. And even if we don't tell her, a lot of guys think, well, I don't tell her anything. You can tell. The amount of attention you are giving someone lets them know how much you value them. It's just the way it is. We can sense the attention we're getting from somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's the thing. That's a lot of guys don't understand, is that you have to look at your attention as and a lot of guys don't think this way because it's so abstract and it's hard to conceptualize. Oh, you know, they just think, oh, I'm just talking to her. Oh, I'm just texting with her. Like Bobby said, sometimes I get guys, well, I never told her. I never told her anything. I didn't reveal I liked her. I didn't send the flowers at work. But that doesn't matter because she's still getting that. In fact, sometimes making the wrong moves like flowers at work can actually work if you're withholding attention or that kind of thing. So the idea that the more obvious moves, and that's why, you know, this course, you know, it's going to take us 2 days to explain everything in it, because so much of the dynamics that take hold in a relationship with a woman, whether you're in the friend zone, whether it's your girlfriend, whatever, so much of it is just that, like, below the surface. It's not so much of what was said. It's not so much of what was done. It was a matter of how much attention was given, how much validation there was, what the, and we'll get into this, what the rules of the relationship, these unspoken, like, implicit rules that sort of set up a perception of you. So the idea of using your attention, like attention equals validation. Attention equals attraction. Attention equals your biggest asset with that hard-to-get girl, really, or with any girl, really, but especially when you're in that situation with that hard-to-get girl, because that's when, you're like the 30K millionaire, in Scottsdale. You ever see these guys at the clubs, like, they call them like 30K millionaires. They make like 30K, and then they go out and they buy like, $2,000 bottle service, and they rent like a Ferrari, drive to the club. And that's what happens to a lot of guys. They're the 30K millionaires of the attention economy. When they meet that girl they really want to get, they're just throwing their attention out everywhere. And, you're going to be bankrupt, which is, very going home crying, jerking off, in dating terms, very quickly if you're, the 30K millionaire of attention.
Yeah, so, boiling it down, the cat and the string theory, a lot of you are familiar with it. Some of you might not be familiar with it. It's really about attention, right? The cat and the string is like, give her your attention, but always make her work for more attention. If she senses she has all your attention, it's over. And they're really good at figuring it out.
Yeah, and just to explain what that means, like it's like, when you have a cat and then you take a string and you dangle it, if you just let the string dangle in front of the cat's going to get bored and it's going to walk away. But when you dangle it, and it sees it,
pull it away.
Yeah. And that's the idea with the attention, is that you want to be like dangling it, pulling it away, or I like to use the term like, hanging the carrot out, so whatever analogy or metaphor you want to use for it, but understand the idea that your attention and how much you're giving it to her and how much you're showing it to her, that's going to dictate everything and how she sees you.
Yeah, so, the boil down the autonomous man is you can be attracted to her. You can be sexually drawn to her. You can enjoy her company. You can even imagine a future with her. It's not like you don't have to be some heartless guy that doesn't even have that. But you also have to understand that it's your goal, it's your personal boundaries, it's your vision that dictate that future. And if she's on board with that, awesome. But if she's not, you have to be willing to walk away. And it really comes down to that. And they can sense that. You can sense it with people you meet, how much. How much their own life is more important. I mean, the worst thing when you meet somebody and you know that you can like steer them. Like, there's some people that are so feeble-minded that like I know that if I talk to them long enough, like I can get them to quit their job and do like something, because they can't make a decision. They don't have a firm ground.
Yeah, and it's just, like Bobby said, it's like the ultimate goal for a girl to be scrambling for your attention. You want her being the one who's not sure about things. You want to be the rock, the pillar, and you want her to be the one who's fighting and trying to get your attention. So, let's move on now, because we're trying to wrap this section up here, and we're going to move on to some more concrete things. Like I said, sometimes the attitude stuff, it's a little abstract, and it's hard to wrap your brain around. A lot of guys will, skip this section, or they'll just kind of tune it out. But, I hope that me and Bobby really hammered in why the autonomous attitude, why understanding this is so important. And things that you can do, like exercises, there's some exercises in the notebooks, but you want to be doing things every single day that add to your autonomy. I mean, one of the things first question I'm going to ask all you guys, how many of you guys are on Tinder or Bumble? Right? All right. Yeah, so you guys are good. Because whenever I talk to a guy and he has that one girl and he doesn't have options coming in. I'm like, oh, so what other girls are you talking to? Well, none. Like I'm talking to her. I can't talk to other girls. No. Whenever I meet a girl I really like, that's when I'm on those sites more initially, because I want to make sure that I'm not needy at all. I want to be talking to a lot of different women, because I want to keep all my options open until me and whatever that if I'm going to date a girl, we decide that we're going to be exclusive. But up until then, a lot of guys think they're being this chivalrous knight by deleting their Tinder as soon as they meet some girl, and that's putting too much value on her. So if you're for a guy who's not on Tinder, if you're not on Bumble, if you're not talking to other girls, that's going to be a problem when you meet that hard to get girl. So that's why you always want to keep these girls in rotation. You don't have to be dating these girls. You don't have to be sleeping with these girls. But by having other women that you could talk to, even female friends, sometimes when I'm feeling a little needy, I talk to Jessica, because of the fact that just being able to go to a woman and speak to her and get that female validation, because so much of like what we crave as men is female validation. It's totally natural, and that's understandable. That's why when guys are like think they're just going to cut their neediness off, they're not, because it's impossible. It's like telling them, oh, don't think about that girl. And like I said earlier, it's not the problem isn't the fact that you want validation. The problem is the fact that you're thinking about the girl. The problem is that you're expressing it the wrong way. So that's why, one of the easiest ways to combat that is to get on dating apps where you're meeting and you're swiping with different girls.
Yeah, you want to keep in mind it's a lot easier to control your attention than your emotions, right? Your attention you can control, so you can put things in place to control where you put your attention. So, for instance, if you got 7 different girls you're messaging with, your attention is naturally controlled because your emotions you can't control. When your emotions start taking over, it's really hard to not act the way you want to act. I always say to guys when they start saying she's the one, usually she's not the one. Usually she's the only one. And when she's the only one, that's when it becomes a problem. Another thing, when it comes to autonomy, right, is cultivating your ambition. Force yourself to want more, to go after more, and to not settle for less. Guys that settle in one area of their life tend to settle in other areas. And if a girl meets you and she sees that you've settled in, you talk to a girl and you come across as, I really want to do this, but I'm not doing it. I really want to, I really want to move here and I didn't do it. And I really want to do. She realizes you're the type of guy who settles, and now she feels like nobody wants to be with a guy who's settling. When you say money, women like money, right? To me, a lot of times money symbolizes ambition, and I think women are attracted to that because when a woman sees that you're gonna go after the job you want, the money you want, even the way you dress. A guy says, I don't want to have to dress good, but when a woman meets you and she sees that you put effort into what you wear, it shows that you put a level of value on yourself and that you're not going to settle, and that to her makes you a little bit more interesting. It makes you more of a challenge because she's like, oh, this, he's willing to get to that next level in business or his career, or he's willing to to put the effort in to look good. But when she meets a guy who doesn't put an effort into any other area of his life, generally you're not a challenge, and she knows that you're settling in other areas, and no girl wants to feel like you're settling for her. If she meets you and she's like, I know I can have this guy because I would be the best thing in his life, it's not really an attractive thing.
Yeah, no one wants to date down. Everyone wants to date up. The name of my original company was Date Hotter Girls, and that's the thing. It's everyone's here because you want to date. You're not here to date more mediocre women, and it's the same thing with her. She doesn't want to. She's like, oh wow, I can't wait to settle for this guy. Oh, I can't wait. She wants to feel and that's the thing. It's like Bobby said, you don't have to have money. You don't necessarily need to dress even in suits. But the fact is that you do need to have that ambition. You do need to have that respect for yourself. That when you wake up in the morning, that you're treating yourself right, and that goes down to the food you put in your body, the way that you treat your body, how you are you working out? It's funny. A lot of the times, what I say to guys is they would ask me when they want to learn how to approach women, they would say when does an approach begin? Does it begin when you walk in the bar? Does it begin when you walk up to the girl and say something? But for me, when I used to do that a lot, my approaches began when I got out of bed in the morning, because every decision I made, say it was a Friday night, and I was planning to go out to a bar or a nightclub to meet women. Every decision I made that day was going to dictate if I did well at the club, or I was that creepy guy hitting on all the girls. And because if I woke up and I was eating a donut and waking up whenever I wanted and watching Netflix and going out like a slob, it would not have worked because of the fact that I don't value myself. I don't see myself as having any sort of intrinsic value. So when I look up to that girl, I'm like, oh, please accept me. Please, you beautiful woman up on a pedestal. Whereas when I'm doing stuff throughout my day, and when not every single decision, because again, I'm not some automaton robot who does everything. I'm like, oh, I must eat healthy or whatever. I'm gonna eat a bagel on this break in a moment. But at the same time, when the majority of your decisions are nurturing and it's showing that you respect yourself, you respect your body, you respect your time, and all these other aspects, and all these decisions are in alignment. When you walk up to that girl, or when you're talking to that girl, that's going to come through.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing you want to take away from what we just talked about too is ambition signals high standards and it signals choice. When a girl senses that you're ambitious, you're signaling that you have high standards. And one thing, and Rob mentioned it, is we all want to be, and I think, like you said, date hotter girls. I tend to think it's like, if we see ourselves here, we want to be somebody like right here. Like, realistically, like I know from the guys like most guys like want that girl who's like slightly above them in their mind, on their social totem pole in their mind. But you got to understand, the girl also wants the guy who's slightly above her. So you got to keep that in mind. Exercises. We're going to go through these exercises quick because we kind of hit out a lot of them. I have a note here. Read Fountainhead. Has anybody read The Fountainhead? You're reading it, right?
How good is it? Yeah.
Oh my! I will tell you this. I mean, read that book, and I cringe because I always thought that I was very autonomous. I thought I was like, independent of approval. And I read that book. There's a couple characters in it, but there's there's two main characters. One is the epitome of autonomy, and I don't even think you want to get to that level because he's so autonomous that it's like almost non-human. But there's another character who was like Keating's, who he's a pretty good guy overall. But he's so, every decision he makes is like based somehow on opinion of others and approval. And I read it, and some of the things that, like, it was just hitting home because I was like going, oh man. So I would just recommend reading that. It's a good book too.
That type of book. But like I know when I turned that last page of that book, like I was like, wow, like my whole life's different now. Like reading that book, and it's like a case study, and everything we just spoke about, it's encapsulated into, and it's kind of funny too because all her books are like really long. I mean, I don't know if like The Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged, they're like phone books when you buy them, and I feel like that, like even to read them, it's almost like you have to have that ambition. You have, you know what I mean? It's like to get through it, you have to sort of encapsulate a lot of the ideas that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to keep in mind too, not to flattery, but the fact that you guys are here, the fact that you guys are watching, it signals ambition because a lot of guys don't take that effort. I have one friend who, I mean, I can count the amount. He's 30-something years old. I can count the amount of women that he's ever been with on one hand. The amount that he slept with, that I can confirm it might be one. It's definitely one that I can confirm. He knows what I do for like. He's just constantly complaining how I want to go out, but he's never once asked me to to give him a book to read. If I have given him a book to read, he doesn't read it, and it's like just being here, just kind of accepting I was that way years ago. I mean, 1998 is when I stumbled on dating advice, and I said that I knew, I had no. It was a delusional belief in myself back then because I had no proof to back it up. At that point in my life, I had no real reason, but I just knew. I was like, I'm not going to settle. I was like, I'll die before I settle. I'm just not going to fucking settle. I don't want to be one of those guys with some mean girl that I'm not, and just going through the motions of life. I'm just not going to settle in that area. And to, I think figuring this out is really important because as a guy, I think a lot of our self-worth is tied to our ability to be with the woman we want to be with. And what's interesting and what I found through meeting guys like Rob and Pat is that it's really a trickle effect. When guys get this thing figured out, they tend to go on to the next area, and it's kind of like a snowball effect. You'll meet a guy who gets into this for dating advice, and then then because of that mentality of, oh shit, I can actually do things that make me more attractive to women. Let me see if I can learn how to take better care of myself. And then you see the guy lose his weight, and then he's like, I want to make some money, and he reads books, and you just see. I went to a mastermind with people in 2008, and it was insane. You have to hear the power of the mastermind, like Napoleon Hill. So in Think and Grow Rich, he talks about the mastermind set up. And I had read Think and Grow Rich. It's like a book that everybody tells you to read, and not to turn this into a thing, but finally I go to a mastermind, and I was talking to a friend the other day, and at this mastermind, everybody was we were all kind of broke, and I was poor as shit, and 8 years later, half the room are now millionaires or more, and it's because of, and a lot of them were guys, clients and dating advice. It was just people like that, because you're bringing in a mindset of like things can be improved, and you translate that. And for me, like when I realized like I can change this area of my life with dating, and I was painfully shy growing up, and when I realized that like I don't have to go through my life that way, then I realized like, I don't have to go through my life broke. I can do, so I think that's one of the reasons you want to really do this. Any other final notes of female friend to get attention from? I think that's great, he said. A lot of times it's like if you can meet a girl and not fall in love with her, unfortunately, like, or not have her fall in love with you, it's a fine line. But if you can have a really like female friend who's just a cool chick that you're not going to really fall for, but you can like call her up, and because we all need affection. Like, Rob and I, we teach this stuff, but like we're not like inhuman. Like there's days you just want to be around female companions. You don't want to hang out with your buddies and have to like have that guy. You just want to be with a girl and get that feminine energy of being around her and kind of like feel good about yourself. So having a female friend definitely helps become autonomous. Exercise, let it roll off you like water. I mean, this thing changed my life. Rob gave his story of his rejection. I remember in college, there was this girl, Michelle, and she wasn't really that attractive. I was like, something about her, I just wanted to sleep with her. I just found her like sexy, but she was, And she was the president of a sorority, one of the really hot sororities on campus. And, I was kind of like friend-zoney realm with her. And we all go out to this bar, her sorority sponsor. I mean, my whole college goes out on these nights. And I'm in the dance floor with her, and we're just dancing. And I shouldn't be on the dance floor, period, because I have no rhythm. That alone is embarrassing. But in the middle of the dance floor, I go to kiss her. And she kind of goes, "What are you doing?" Right? And like, I go to do it again. And she turns me down again. And then I look around and I just realized like he had that fear of like somebody. I lived that fear. Like everybody from my college was like seeing this happen. And I woke up in the morning and, I was drunk that night, severely drunk. And I woke up with a panic, I was like, fuck, and I was living with some friends. And I had this thing like, I was like, if you don't accept the rejection, it didn't happen. And I just kind of like let it roll off me. I walked in my friend's room, and I was like, Michelle just totally fucking blew me off in front of everybody. Like, just like made it like it was funny, and it became a story. And being able, and this is a little trick too, being able to use negative shit as funny stories.
Yeah,
like
huge.
It's really when something happens and you fuck up, like some of the best times me and him have are just like recounting like our just total embarrassing things we've done with girls. But a thing I recommend in exercise is letting it roll. Actually, like, you ever, back in the day, there was that what was it called, where you put it on your windshield and the rain hits it and like it just Rain-X, right? And like opinions, just visualize it, like as it hits you. And I still do this. I tend to drink a little. Like when I go out meeting people, I drink, and then I wake up the next day and I think of conversations I have, and I start like, I'm like, oh man, and I'm just like, just let it roll off you, like just roll, and like don't think about it, like roll off. And it's gotten to the point now where like you realize that if you're not affected by somebody's perception of you, it doesn't mean anything, right? Like, I texted a girl once, and I remember this was another thing where I texted her, and then I was like, she didn't get back, and I was like picturing her reading it and thinking, and I was like, but she doesn't really know. I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. And if you can, persistence, right? Like, it's always like, oh, when should you stop? When should you give up? And I say, like, if you can't walk away, you should walk away. But being persistent, if you're not emotionally attached, and if it's rolling off you, and you're just having fun with it, there's like, you can just like literally, a girl's not rejecting you if it's not, like, rejection only matters if you accept it. If you don't accept it, it's not happening. And if it rolls off you, like, and you just like, it doesn't matter, right? So that's an exercise. Just practice like you're covered in Rain-X and the rejection's coming at you, or the thoughts of the embarrassing conversations you were having when you were drunk. You just let it roll off you. You just don't accept it. Develop a purpose that is higher than girls.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that. The idea that just figuring out what you really want to do. For me, I was really quick. Let's share this. Recently, one one thing I was always interested in was like kickboxing, like, you know, MMA, that kind of thing, fighting. I guess it's like I got bullied a little bit as a child, and like so I always just was like vaguely interested in it, but I never really had the balls to go out and go into a gym and actually join. And a couple of years ago, I just said, you know, fuck it. Like, I've always wanted to do this. I'm gonna look like an idiot. You know, I'm gonna suck at it, and I surely did. And I got beat up a little bit, but it was so worth it. And you know, and just figuring out stuff like that. Like, there's probably something that you've always wanted to do, something that you've been curious about, something that has been interesting to you. And now's the time, really, where you should think about going out and doing it, because of the fact that, like I said, like now when I meet a girl, and I'll schedule around going to my 5 or 7 o'clock kickboxing class because of the fact that that's important to me. So figuring out, like, you know, different purposes, different hobbies, or different interests. Like, if I ask you guys on the break, like, what your hobbies are, and you can't answer that question, or what, you know, it just makes you less interesting, but and more importantly, it makes you less autonomous.
And you know, the final thing here is, you know, we have on there, read the comments on our YouTube videos. And the reason I say this is because, you know, we're very comfortable with what we do. Like, I love it, you know. But there's some level of you have to be able to let shit roll off you, because they're fucking brutal. Like,
oh man, like, yeah, like
if you read comments, like some of the shit, like me and him, we actually have fun with it. Like, we'll be on Skype, and I'll just be like, the new comment will come in, and I'll just like copy and paste it to him, and it's like, dude, it's just like, it's soul wrenching. Like,
like 10 years ago, if I tried to do this job 10 years ago, right, and some of these comments, because the worst is when they're really funny, because it's like you want to laugh, but you're like, oh no, but it's about me. But at the same time, like, some of these, you know, it can be brutal, and I'm not just saying on YouTube. You know, I've had girls say stuff to me. I've had you know, dudes say stuff to me. Whatever. Everyone's had that experience, but it used to bother me. At this point, I'm genuinely entertained. In fact, if any of you guys want to make fun of me,
What was the brutal comment?
oh, we're gonna read them. We're gonna get to them. Yeah. Let's get a couple here. Real quick. Before we break.
Yeah, no, I mean,
do you have them?
I do, but if we push, I have a few. I mean, it's a few. I could have kept going. We started copying and pasting last night, and I'm like, it won't be worth it.
Well, I'll give you the main themes. It's that we're both homosexuals, and when the cameras turn off, that we're gonna have sex with each other. It's that I'm a meth addict, and I'm gonna kill Toady.
The meth addict one was good because we filmed the video, and I drank too much coffee, whatever it was, and his eyes were like, well,
okay, and in my defense, when he's talking, I don't know where to look. Like, it's just, you know, I'm not a public speaker. Where the fuck do you look?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's weird. You know, and it's funny because there's actually memes, like, created, like, guys who, like, take pictures of him and his psycho eyes.
And it's so good. Yeah. Well, we'll spread some of these around because, I mean, like, they're like, legitimately funny, and it's a great point. I do look at fucking, and also, like, I'm very high energy anyway. So I understand, but they were saying, like, look out, Bobby Rio, he's going to fucking kill you in a parking lot for crack money.
And a lot of it is just, like, why would you take advice from these two guys? These two guys are, like, the fucking nerdy, like, you guys couldn't get laid in the, you know, just really taking fucking shots at us, you know? But two things you have to understand, like, it's you know, like, if it's kind of like you have to deal with haters and rejection. Like, if you're going to go after girls, and you're going to have to deal with girls that don't like you and don't, you know, if you're going to put yourself out there to teach this, you're going to have to deal with stuff. And you also realize, like, who does it say more about, you know, us or the guy who's taking the time to write some, like, comment and, like, you know, what is his life like that he's got to, like, get his, like, validation from insulting, you know.
Some of them are pretty funny. Some of them are pretty good comedy. You know, like I said. But, you know, the thing that what Bobby's saying is that there's nothing anyone could write in a comment section, nothing anyone could say to me that would make me change my opinion of myself. My opinion of myself is, like, between my two ears. You know, like, how I think about myself. There's nothing a girl, like, and that goes both ways. I can get the hottest girl in the world, or I can get rejected by the grossest, you know, most embarrassing way. And my opinion of myself wouldn't change because I have that autonomy. And that wasn't always the way it was. There was a point where if I remember the first time I actually went to go approach a girl. It was these two girls. I was at, you guys been to Manhattan, you know, 235th? It's like this rooftop bar, very swanky. I went in, I felt all cool, and I thought it was going to be like the movies. I was going to, like, roll, you know, whatever. I walked up, I, like, mumbled a pickup line. I was like, ugh. And then the two girls, they didn't even reject me. They just kind of turned away from me, and I, like, sprinted to the bathroom, and I was crying. I remember, like, it was so pathetic. Yeah, thank you, Jessica. Thank you. Yeah, she's giving me the female sympathy, which actually makes it even worse. I feel like I'm a bigger loser. Thank you. But, you know, so that's the thing. So this doesn't happen all at once, but just by understanding this and by being exposed to these ideas, that's the first step towards getting that, coding yourself in that Rain-X, because it is so important. Where, like, when a girl says to me, like, oh, like, why'd you wear that shirt? What are you, what are you, gay? And I'm like, absolutely, and just being able to, like, banter. And one of the best ways to flirt with a girl is, like, when she's throwing out a little barb or she's teasing you a little bit, or even if she seems like she's insulting you, if you can take what she said and make it funnier or even go even further, that is one of the best ways to turn a girl around or to really open a girl up, because she sees that, like, she can test you a little bit, she can bust your balls, she can, but she's not getting to that autonomous side of you. Your opinion of yourself is completely in your own head. It's totally your business how you think of yourself. And she can make jokes, and it bothers you so little that you can actually add to it and make jokes as well. So that's just a technique that I've learned, in terms of, like, dealing with women, because, not every single woman is really nice at first. And these aren't bad girls. These aren't, particularly mean women, but they just want to test you a little bit. They want to see, okay, is this guy really who he's presenting himself as? Is he really this autonomous? So, she might say your shirt's gay, or she might say something. And if you can just, let it roll off you, and especially if you can even amplify it, because that to me shows, like, true confidence. The result is going to be amazing, and it's going to do so much more to amplify your attraction than anything that most guys would think. Most guys would think, oh, if I say the perfect line, blah, blah, blah. I actually kind of like it when I make mistakes, because, not that I go out and try to make mistakes, but I actually kind of like making mistakes in front of girls where they notice and they bust my balls about it, because it gives me that opportunity to show that, like, hey, like, oh yeah, like, I remember that, I was talking to some girl and fucking spat on her, and like, yeah.
I gotta wipe it, and you just spit in my face. And
and I'm like, wow, like, and then just making a joke about it, like, you know what, like, if you weren't as hot as you were, I would be like James Bond right now, but, like, you're really cute, and you're wearing that dress, and now I'm spitting when I'm talking. So just being able to be in that moment and to not, like, what happens to most guys is they hear one comment like that, and it's like, womp, 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 and they go into this tailspin, or they get angry, or whatever. Just having no emotional response and just rolling with it. Like Bobby said, like, that analogy of the Rain-X is perfect. So just something to consider.
I like his. He was telling me earlier a story of his old business partner who's getting just, like, these girls are just berating him in a nightclub, and he's just sitting there, like, happily, like, they're just like, you're the fucking you're fat, like, just telling him all this shit, and he like, what was his line? They
so it was funny. It was actually in Vegas, and it was these two, like, because my old business partner, he was, like, delusional, like, in terms of the way he saw himself, and it was I learned so much from that, and it was just so funny because he approached these two like platinum blondes, Vegas. He walks up to him, and probably said something stupid, and they just kind of give him, like, the look, like he just, like, farted in front of him, like what are you even doing at our table? You fucking smell. Why don't you just back up a little bit? And, like, oh my god, he's fat too, and, like, and the two of them were just like oh, and it looked like he hadn't shaved in, like, 3 days, and he was like, how, like, a guy trying to pretend like he doesn't care, like, oh yeah, I didn't shave in 3 days, but, like, he was like. It was like a Santa Claus laugh. It was like a belly laugh. He was like, you're absolutely right. And they're like, oh my god, he's talking. It's talking. Ugh. Like, truly. And then, and I was watching this, and even, like, at this point, I was like, starting. I felt pretty autonomous. And I was just like, oh my god, I'm gonna slit my wrist. And later on, you end up making out one of those girls, and we were at a pizzeria the next day, and I was talking to him. I was like, dude, Zach, what the fuck were you thinking? I'm like, that was like that was awesome. Like, how did you not react to that? And he's looking at me like I was like the biggest idiot. Like, it was so obvious. He's like, Rob, come on. He's like, they just haven't met Zach yet. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it's like, whatever they're saying. He's like, they just haven't met the Zach experience yet. He's like, that's fine, And to be that delusional, to be that confident, and that's something to aspire to just be able to, like, no matter what the fuck is being said, to be able to just laugh and just be like, they haven't had the, Bobby experience or the Rob experience yet.
You guys familiar with the term the gray area? Have you heard me? Your ability to be comfortable in the gray area is the most crucial. Like, if anything is going to get you success with women, and if you study guys who are just really fucking good with women, like Zach, and is that they're comfortable and they're willing to have that moment where the girl's just not into them, and they're willing to just, like, deal with it. It's kind of like they say, like, entrepreneurs are willing to be broke and deal with it, and it's any area of your life. If you're willing to be in the gray area, like, we want most guys, they meet a girl. And they want to know really fast that she's attracted to them. But attraction is black or white. Right? You know, it's a sliding scale, and you know, Zach can go from the girl thinking he's fat and smelly, and knowing Zach, he was probably stoned out of his mind with red eyes, and like it was probably not a you know, but he was comfortable with it because he knows that like an initial opinion doesn't really matter, that it changes, that there's this gray area. So write that down. Like get like practice being comfortable in the gray area. Don't need her to be attracted to you. Don't feel like the minute I start talking to her, I have to know she likes me. Be comfortable with that not knowing, right? And when you become comfortable with that, it allows a lot more opportunities to happen. So,
I was gonna say, like one of the things I always to kind of close up the section. One of the things I always say to guys is that if she's in front of you, she's attracted to you. Like that's all that matters. Like, you guys are like, oh, what signal should I be looking for if she likes me? I'm like, look, the only signal I'm looking for when I'm talking to a girl, whether she likes me or not, is she still talking to me? Is she still there? Like, if you know. Girls have no problem at all excusing themselves from the situation or leaving or not responding to your text. So if she's responding, she's talking to you, even if it's negative, even if she's saying stuff that, unless it's like, hey, stop talking to me, I'm going to call the police. Outside of that, whatever she's saying, I'm interpreting as, okay, because again, I'm not looking at what she's saying, I'm looking at the attention. Like I'm focused on, you know, that's not focused on the surface level. I'm focused on the level beneath, where her attention is. And if her attention's on me, like I said before, attention equals attraction. Attention equals validation. Her attention on me equals her attraction to me.
Cool. So why don't we take a 5-10 minute break? And you got to use the bathroom, get a drink of water, grab a beer, and then we will move into counterintuitive thinking.